Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And I was at a convention just yesterday, as a matter of fact. It's a local convention. There's a thing called pop culture, and they travel around from small town to small town. Although our town here isn't that small, in population of about 90,000, I guess. And the people can come in and they set up their booth full of pop culture items, including comic books. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. I didn't buy a lot there. I think there's like 15 or 16 books to go through here. So that's why I'm doing it partly this way. But there's like little stories involved with what I did and how I bought. I don't have any video of the location, but it's a small location. As I say, there was three comic book dealers, four if you include the one guy who had two short boxes of modern slabs. But I don't buy modern slabs, so I didn't even look over there. But there were other things other than comic books. There was Pokemon cards. There was people still trying to sell Funko Pops. There was other pop culture reference things from figurines, wrestling figurines, superhero figurines, some anime material happening there. There was even somebody there selling popcorn. So a small collection of stuff there, and I checked it out. And it was a good day. I enjoyed myself there. Right out of the gate, I met somebody who I haven't seen for a while, a guy by the name of Tony. We used to play Magic: The Gathering on Friday nights at a place in Aurora that's now since closed down. So I haven't seen him in a long time, but he seems to be doing well with his wife. And he was dressed up in Ghostbusters gear because helps run a charity now to raise money for the South Lake Hospital. Very nice. So I got a chance to talk with him. So inside, when walked around and I saw the three dealers, I went to the first guy who had the biggest table, and I hadn't seen him before. He had I don't know, like 12 tables, and he had like in the center of this particular area, no wall for a wall books, but he had a center thing. So I went and I took a look over there and showed me these are the 5 or 6 boxes that would be wall books, and take a look, and then it's all alphabetical from here on in. So I started to take a look at the wall books, and as I'm looking, I'm going through and I'm thinking, wow, that's a really high price for that particular book. And the next one, and it's like, well, that's a really high. Actually, it turned out that I'm looking at these prices, and they're about 4 times what I would be willing to pay for any of these books. So after a couple of boxes, I just stopped looking because I said, even if I find something in here that I'm looking for, I'm just not going to pay that price. And then we went over to the other part of the books where it's not the wall books, it's just regular, again, the same sort of thing. These are not key books by any stretch of the imagination, and they're charging about 4 times as much that that I would be willing to pay for it. So I can't buy anything from him. So I went to the other one of the guys is a guy named Scott who I know. Scott, he used to have twice the size. He used to have like 4 tables out there and a big wall, but now he's down to two. He's just himself. He's about my age or so. These books start to get heavy, and the setup is a big long thing. And I talked to him a bit. And he says, "Well, family obligations, things have changed in the family, so I can only get out about once a month to make these conventions." So we chatted, and it was good to catch up with him. I'd call him a friend, but I don't have his like phone number or address, and I just know him as Scott, and I'd have no way to contact him if I wanted to talk later about something, that, or the other thing. But it was good to see him again and see that he's doing okay, and again, family obligations, and I went and I looked at his stuff, and again. Even though he has everything marked at 25% off for the key books, they're marked up again much higher than I would like to pay. And the other thing is I've gone through most of his stuff with his family obligations, and with him only going out to like one show a month instead of once a weekend type of thing, or twice a weekend even. He hasn't been buying a lot of material, so much of what I've seen on the wall and in the bins itself, I've seen before. He did have a $2 bin underneath the table, and I pulled them out by hand because I'm bending down and looking through. Nah. So I went through and I picked out 11 books, and I was putting the 11th one back. This is the 11th one back, and he says, no. Just take the 10 for $20, and then just take that one as well, which is fine. I mean, it's no great savings, but it's good for me and good for him as well that he doesn't have to carry one extra book home. So this is the book that I got for free. Am I interested in Zorro? No, but I am interested in Topps, and I wouldn't mind getting all of the books that Topps published. So finding this one was fine. Again, this was the one that I would have put back because I'm not interested in Zorro, but because it's part of the top, sure, why not? So we'll go through these ones first. Always looking to fill up the Ultimate Spider-Man run. So with issue number 25, this one's fine. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm interested in the Hulk. And interested in Batman. And again, these are all just $2 books. This was a great little series. I've been enjoying it. I managed to get a batch of these. I don't know, 15 or 16 of them scattered throughout the run. I think it's a 75 issue run or something like that, 60, 75. Anyways, I've been enjoying Sandman Mystery Theater. I'm looking forward to getting the whole thing and then sitting down and rereading the whole thing. So this is issue number 16. X Factor, which I may be talking about in the new year. Who knows? I liked a lot of the X Factor. I didn't like this particular stretch of the X Factor, the last 40 or 50 books of it. But you know, the completionist in me says, "Oh, you gotta buy them." So that's 104, and then I did find issue number 109. And I used to have all that 70s Byrne, Claremont, Cockrum, X-Men stuff way back when I first started buying comics, way back in the 70s. But I sold them all so that I could take a ski trip to Quebec. Actually, it was Mont Saint Anne. I think it was Mont Saint Anne. Or it could have been Mont Tremblant. I can't remember which one it was. But I went on a ski trip, and the only way that I could fund this ski trip was to sell my X-Men collection, which I did, and I enjoyed my ski trip. So, and the thing with X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men, all of this stuff, sure, would I like to own all of that stuff again? Yes, I know that the price is high, but it's also very available. It's everywhere. So I can, and because it's not an immediate concern, I can buy it when I find it at a really good price. And I know this is not part of that run. This is issue number 310. But when I find some Uncanny X-Men at a really low price, even if it's later in the run, sure, I'll pick one up. So this was a $2 book. I do like the Batman stuff, and this one just, you know, I'm not really focused on Shadow of the Bat, but this was, issue number 35. It's got a nice little sort of glossy cover to it, so I bought that. And always looking for Spider-Man material, so there was this one here. Again, these are scattered all over the place. And eventually I'll, you know, be working on the Silver Surfer as well, so this was just issue number 6. It was a loose one lying around. That was it for the $2 books, and then I went to another booth, Moe's Attic, who I've shopped before at Moe's Attic, and again, he's got some really nice books on the wall, but again, I find that these things are overpriced. Now, part of it, when you have these smaller little conventions, a lot of the people that come to these conventions, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but a number of them have never been inside of a comic book store. They don't have a regular place to go. They see stuff online or through Marketplace and what have you. And then at these shows. So, and as I was talking to Scott, you know, when they go further out, like 100 miles north of here or something like that, where they don't even have a comic book shop, people are anxious and excited about seeing comics in the raw and the wild, if you like, and they, Scott and Mo and this other guy can command a higher price for this stuff because people don't get access to it as often. But down here, I get access to it all over the place, and so when I see the price on some of these wall books, I think, hey, I'm not going to pay that. So this is Sandman issue number 8, the first appearance of Death, and it's in pretty good shape. I would say that it's probably about an 8, maybe. Yeah, we'll call it an 8. We'll call it an 8, and I paid $35 for it. While I was there was a young gal. She's probably somewhere around the age of my niece, which is what, 19? Is that? I think that's the age of my niece. So she's somewhere between, 16 and 19. I can't tell. And she was looking at Sandman, but the first thing that caught her eye was the one on the wall. So she was looking at the one that was on the wall, and he was bringing it over to her, and it was $250. Sure, it was, near mint, but it wasn't graded. It was just a $250 near mint copy of Sandman number 8. And, and she was, because that's a lot of money for somebody that age. And he said, well, I have some other copies. And he pulled out a couple of other copies, and Showed them to her and said, "This one here, I could sell you for $50." So I took a look at it and I compared it to the one that I'm buying for $35, and I we took a look at it in the gloss and I said, yeah, it's a little bit better shape than this, not much, but it's a reasonable price, and for $50, that's a good price for a Sandman number 8 in 8 or higher. You know, going back in the past again and what have you, is that any book that was 8 or higher, even seven or higher, would be certainly worth collecting, and people would be happy to have a book in that kind of condition. Now it seems like, oh no, I got to have something in a 9, a 9.8, I got to have it graded and all that. That's just a different way of collecting, and that's fine. But I'm saying that guys my age, and I'll talk about Sam as well, 7 or 8, that's optimum. That's perfect for a collection. So she ended up buying the book for $50, and I directed her over to Scott because, like about 4 years ago, I sold a whole batch of Sandman books from issue 20 to 70. There's about 30 issues somewhere scattered in there. And I sold them for a really cheap deal or something like that. It was like $75 for the lot of them. And so I directed her over to Scott, and I said, "Tell Scott to give you a good deal if you're looking to fill some of the holes in the Sandman, because I know I sold him a batch at a low price." So she did. She went over and saw Scott, and I talked with him later and said I gave her a good deal, and I'm happy about that. So I'm glad that somebody who's interested in the comic books and actually got themselves a good deal and found that it was possibly a rewarding or good experience. But while I'm there, also there, I was talking about a guy named Sam, who is, again, he's about my age. Actually, he's about 10 years older than I am, and he stopped collecting probably in the early 70s. So he was buying stuff in the 60s, a lot of DC stuff, he said, and then stopped in the 70s, and didn't come back to it until he retired about 15 years ago or so. And his wife said, "Got a hobby." So he decided that he would look back at his comic books, and he's into the hobby. And now he has a list that's as big as the list that I carry around. So we started talking about how, condition of a book is important, but we're not, as I said, not fixated on the 9.8s or the graded. Just a 7 is great. He said, I don't want to buy a book that's lower than a 4, and I'm on board with that concept as well, especially if you go deeper into the Silver Age material, which both Sam and I do, and he does the bronze as well, which I do as well. So, all this 9.8 stuff and graded stuff, it's lost on us, on people of perhaps my generation or the way that I like to collect, but certainly not for newer collectors. So there's a lot of deals. If you're willing to accept a grade that's not a 9.8, you can find a good deal. I'm telling you, Sandman number 8, first appearance of death, for $35, and an 8 point whatever, that's a good deal. So I bought some books. These were the last books that I bought from Mo's Attic. As I said, the wall books were very expensive. But he has a number of bins that says 50% off. And not only is it 50% off, but then you can swing a little bit of a deal as well. So I got this one for $35. This was part of the deal. I mean, I bought these books here, and it just sort of said, we throw this one in there, because it's got it priced at $25. Half price would be $12.50. It's the first appearance of Omega the Unknown, bronze book. Used to have it, but I lost it somewhere along the way. So I'm happy just to grab this one. And this was sort of the throw-in for all the other stuff that I bought. And what else did I get? Just a couple others. This is a Bronze Age, early Bronze Age Avengers number 83, the first appearance of the Lady Liberators. Now you can see that there's a mark up here, and there's a stain, I think, somewhere over here, down here on the cover. But again, the price of this was about $35, which it's not a 9, it's probably a 6, maybe but we'll call it a 6. We'll call it a 6 because of the marks. Maybe somebody might say a 5.5, but again, it's over that 4 threshold. It shows nice, it's good. I am happy to buy this at that kind of a price. And this one here, which would be about $25, because he had it listed at 50. You can see all the spine ticks and all that sort of stuff. But this is a book that's, it's a Gold Key. Gold Key books are generally, it's hard to find one in really sharp condition, because they were often read by younger kids, because they weren't superheroes, and then they were just sort of tossed in piles and things like that. I'm looking to complete all of this Hanna-Barbera TV superheroes. It's only a 7-issue run, but I really like the Herculoids, and you can see down here that it features the Herculoids are part of this group. But it's also got the Galaxy Trio and Birdman. Sign me up. I do have a copy of #1 of this that I only bought $10 for, but it's missing the center page. And the center page is just like a little information page. It doesn't have anything to do with the story. It doesn't even feature any images of any of these heroes. It's a little fact sheet about aardvarks or whatever else it is, and it's like 2 pages long, and it's missing from my copy of #1. I bought my copy of #1 for $10. The one on his wall, which is the same condition, but it has the centerpiece, he was selling for $200. So is it worth $190? I mean, I know it's complete and you want to have things complete, and I do want to have things complete, but it's just I can't justify spending an extra $190 just for a fluff piece on aardvarks. So for now, my first issue doesn't have that fluff piece, and I'm happy with that. Working on this. One of the things I did notice about Gold Key books, though, is like if you went back even say 10 years, probably 10 years, Gold Key, nobody was buying Gold Key anywhere. It was like it was always in bargain bins everywhere because nobody was following up on it. But now I find that there is a renewed interest in it, or awakened interest in it, and a lot of this stuff is selling at a higher price now. And he had a lot of nice Gold Key books, and I was tempted on a number of fronts for, an issue #1 of this and issue #1 of that. But again, I was just very light purchasing, so this I was happy with. But I'm telling you, if I go back and see Mosette again, I will probably go buy another Gold Key book because he had some nice books in nice condition at a really reasonable price. And the last book I got, and this is a beat up copy here. Okay, so this is Fantastic Four #21. This is the earliest Fantastic Four now in my collection. The first appearance of the Hate Monger, and it's beat up pretty bad. And the thing is, I took it out of the case to take a look through it and see, because it was at a reasonable price. He was asking about $35 for this book. So 35 around there. So I started looking through the pages, and it's what you would expect on a low grade book. I mean, it was all intact. Everything was the staples were still holding. The paper's getting a little tanned and what have you, but it's still crisp. It even shows okay on the front. I know there's spine ticks and things and chewing up in the corner and all that sort of stuff. A little bit of staining, but overall not too bad. And for $35, I thought, yeah, that's all right. But then I discovered that there was a hole on page number 13, and it's not a big hole. It's probably about an inch long and half an inch wide, and it does interrupt one panel on the story, but not the other. The other side of the panel is an ad for something, so it doesn't really affect that. So it does affect the story, and you could consider it incomplete because there's a hole in the book. So I didn't know that I wanted that, but then he reduced the price and says, listen, I'm going to reduce the price to you, and because you found the hole, I will give it to you for $20. So for $20, you might want to call it a placeholder or whatever you want to call it, but I know that buying Silver Age Fantastic Four is going to cost me a fair amount of money continuing on. In fact, I saw a Fantastic Four #21 this year that I was under consideration. Much better condition, probably about a 6 or a 7, that was selling for $420. Well, there's sometimes I look at these things and I think, well, that's nice, but maybe that $420 or would be going better off towards, say, Fantastic Four 52, the first appearance of Black Panther. And I still need issue number 48, the first Silver Surfer. Maybe that $400 extra is better off spending on that kind of a key rather than buying a better or a sharper condition of issue number 21. So I'm happy with this one here. Even with a hole and whatever, it was only $20. So all of this stuff, including admission into the event, cost me $145, which is about $10 a book. So, and I was good with that. Anyways, I just wanted to share that story with you about going to the convention and some of the pickups that I made there, and some of the connections and friends that you made along the way. So it was a good 2 hours spent at this thing. That's it for me. So be good to yourself and be good to others, and we'll talk again soon.